Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Mark Fellman. I'm your guest host this week. Eric's away in Japan, and today is my special guest, Ann Ward, who's going to be painting in gouache today, which is a little different than yesterday. Welcome, Ann. Can you
Thanks,
tell us
Mark.
what you're going to be doing today?
Well, today I'm going to demonstrate just a small sketch in gouache. And the point of sharing this process is really to share how I try to make use of small moments of time and the consistency of daily practice. And gouache is a wonderful way to do that.
Great. All right. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Let's get this show started.
Okay.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
Hi again, everybody. Obviously, I'm not Eric Rhodes, but I'm Mark Fellman. I'm your guest host. Today's guest is Ann Ward, who's going to show us how to paint shapes that tell a story. But first, I've got a couple commercial comments here. First of all, I want to tell you about today's prize. It's an easel brush clip, which I use in the field all the time. And to get a chance to win that prize, just tell us where you're from in the comments on the side. Also, last show's winner was Dominique from Mississippi. She, sorry, I lost my spot here. Dominique from Mississippi. She won Eric's art marketing book. Dominique, would you send an email to asl@streamlinepublishing.com? Also, we have a gift for all of you today. You can download the free ebook at called 97 Incredible Art Secrets. Go to 97artsecrets.com/free. And everybody, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're on YouTube at Art School Live and at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. You can also see Ann's work, which is fabulous. Go to her website. I highly encourage it. She's at Ann Ward, that's Ann with an E, ward.com. And of course, you can go see my website at markfellman.com. So with all that, Ann, take it away. It's all yours.
Okay, so you are ready for me to start painting, and I'm going to just need first I'm going to show you before we get over, because this is about shapes. And to me, the thing that I love relative to making art is looking at shapes and how they relate to one another, color, light, all of those things. And I think that it allows for telling a story in a very efficient way to me, rather than rendering. So it's more about, the journey mindset rather than like the destination. That's how I think about what I'm doing and what I'm sharing today. So this is my shape wall. So I have a garden, and I'm often out in the garden with scissors and cutting out shapes in paper, so that it gives me sort of a repository, a catalog of remembering how something looked. And so I'll do those sort of shapes. And then in gouache, I'll also be making sketches that are things in the garden as I'm seeing them in isolation. But I'll also set up in the garden often just working 8x10 of something that's more of flowers in context. So that's more like an actual painting. So that is how that's what I enjoy doing. And part of working in gouache is just the expediency of it, the portability of it, and it's just a wonderful way to make sure that I'm being consistent every day with my art practice. So between working in gouache or sketching on the iPad, I'm, exploring ideas and observing every day. And those pieces contribute to the big paintings. And I'm working towards a show next year at the Santa Paula Museum of Art. And so there's a lot of big oil paintings and acrylic paintings that I'm doing for that. But fundamental to the process is the small sketches. So, okay. So that's that. And I can turn my camera around and just get right to it. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, let's see.
So this is a 2-artist household, isn't it?
Oh, yes. So, yeah, my husband, Ian Roberts, is quite the artist. And we're so lucky. I've got my little studio here inside the house, but truthfully, in spring and summer, I'm painting out in the garden a lot. And then out at the back, we share a studio that's adjacent to the garden.
Right.
So, but he's doing so much YouTube that it's often more, sort of dedicated to that right now.
Yeah, well, you turn your camera. I'll tell them a little about Ian.
Okay.
If you haven't seen Ian's composition posts, they are fabulous. They're clips, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes long. But boy, you can learn so much from just watching his videos. Real basic concepts. So take a look at that on YouTube. And Anne, we've collected her cards. Anne and my wife, Anne, spelled the same way. We've collected her cards, a painting. We've got all kinds of stuff. I just love the kind of work that she does. It's so fresh and just delightful.
Thank you, Mark. I really feel I like the idea of sort of helping people leverage tech so that they can, be more, in the present moment and aligned to creativity. It's just everything right now.
Yep.
So,
great.
Okay, so here we are. Let's see. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show that when I'm beginning the painting, how's this looking like where the camera is?
I would turn it a little bit like we talked about before. We're getting a little, actually, yeah, other way.
Other way. Okay,
Other way.
How's that?
That's good. And then we have room for the reference photograph too. So this works
terrific.
out fine.
Okay, So here is how this is my very unorthodox way of seeing the world, which is I'm looking at shapes, and I think I am quite dyslexic. So the
what are you
way
painting on?
I see the world is an imbalance of shapes. So in this instance, I've got the center of a sunflower here. So I'm going to just sketch this out as we go so that everyone can see. Okay, so let's go to the center. I need a little more of this. Okay. There's the center of that sunflower. And the thing I'm always trying to keep in mind is like the disproportionality of things. So you don't want, there's nothing more boring than uniformity, in my opinion. So it's like you want to emphasize the difference of the different sizes of things in your painting. So what you can see is, like right from the start, we're just looking at shapes.
And what are you painting with right now? Are you, it's kind of a dark gray brown?
Yeah, I'm just using, just to emphasize this, I might, if I were outside, I might be using a pencil to sketch it in, but I just wanted it to be visible. So, all right. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to squint and figure out what's the biggest dark value or darker value. And I'm going to start by massing that in. And I'm just squinting and relating. And the thing that I like to do is just cover the canvas and then begin adjusting. And once the canvas is more covered than not, you've got a better chance of relating. It's just all about relating. So let me just mix some up here. And the thing about gouache is you're always going to, it's going to dry a little darker than you anticipate. So it's going to dry down a value or two. So it's just about getting a layer on and then adjusting. And I've got
And that sets up pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And it dries fast, which is why working outside, you've got to, you really have to have a strategy in place for navigating it all.
Do you have a specific paint you like to use, gouache paint?
Yes. So I put that all in that free guide thing that I made for everybody. I like using, I really like the acrylic Holbein. And the truth is it's the quality is great. It's a lot more expensive than the Liquitex. And, you know, I think I think the Liquitex is perfectly fine. And basically the thing is that the gouache is mostly, I don't use straight gouache. I'm using the acrylic gouache, which I really like. And it's, sorry, I'm mixing here as we go. The acrylic gouache has, like, the content of it is more acrylic than gouache. And so somebody might say, well, why would you use that instead of acrylic? And I think a big piece of that is the convenience of it. So I'm squinting and I'm just going to say this value is going to be a little bit lighter if I'm squinting. I'm just trying to relate one value area to the next. Okay. And we're sort of generalizing. And the idea is that you're using a big brush, big shapes to small shapes, big brush to small brush. So let's see here. Okay. And now I'm going to just keep squinting in the areas that are a little bit more chromatic. I'm going to add some.
There's a question in the comments. What is the convenience that you were talking about between gouache and acrylics?
I think it is that it's already the tubes are pre-mixed. I don't know why. It feels like somehow more cumbersome to go out with acrylics. I can't tell you why. I don't know. Maybe it's the tubes. I've done both. I've painted pretty big outside in acrylic in my yard. Some of the big paintings are, 30 by 40.
Wow.
I paint in oil in the yard like 50 by 60.
Wow.
It's so much fun. So let's see here. All right. So now, okay. And then you got to have, of course, like a big spray bottle that you take outside, a good umbrella, all of those things. I think the thing is part of the appeal of gouache maybe is also that it lends itself, for me, to painting smaller. And so in some ways, there's less pressure. There's more room to experiment. The stakes are a little bit lower in the sense that it really does become more of, for me, an exploration rather than arriving at a finished painting. Although that said, I've certainly sold paintings, sketches in gouache from the garden. So it's okay. So all right. So now what I'm going to do is keep squinting, and I'm going to, the shapes of the inside of the flowers are dark, but they've got a little bit of warmth to them. So just going to keep covering the canvas here.
So we've got another question. Is gouache more opaque than acrylic?
That is a great question. Let's see, is gouache more opaque than acrylic? Do you know, I would say it dries flatter. And that's one of the things that I love. Like, I love the work of Fairfield Porter. And he just painted shapes, and he painted, how one shape is relating to another shape. So it's sort of like, to me, I studied with someone named Joseph Mendez, and he was really, he was an intense teacher. But one thing he used to emphasize was the person who says the most with the least wins.
Yeah.
And I love that. So there's something about an efficiency and an economy that comes with painting small and working in gouache.
That's great. It seems like there's more great gouache painters lately that I keep seeing, and I know they're just so bright and energized.
Yeah, there's a real way. One of the things I put in that free guide is that when I'm painting outside in gouache, I'll use a different surface for a different, to achieve a different result. So now I'm squinting and I'm looking at, this shape here, which I know from real life is going to have a little bit more blue in it, this shadow shape. And so when I'm outdoors, I'm using a different surface, which is I'm using a cradled gesso board. That surface is really fast. And by what I mean by fast is that it's just really slick. So it gives you the opportunity to, sort of, one thing I love to do, it's a little more like riding a bike without brakes, but it is so much fun, which is you get outside and you create a very dynamic surface by washing in a more chromatic value than what you're actually seeing, and then you keep working against it, but without losing the luminosity of the wash-in. And so that is what I love doing outside. It's a less controlled way of painting than what I'm doing right now. I don't know
What are you
what
painting on? What are you painting on right now?
So right now I'm painting on something I love. They're called cartone boards, and they're from Gorilla Painter. And there's a guy, Carl Judson, who runs Gorilla Painter, and he created these, and they're archival, and the surface is wonderful because it's toned. It's absorbent without killing the intensity. So I've got this value a little bit light, but adjust that. So. But one thing I love to do, my version of plein air, when my kids were really needing me, or I wanted to believe that my kids needed me, was my version of plein air became setting up my easel in my kitchen and painting whatever was at hand from life, and painting small. And I got that great idea from Peggy Roberts, who just made it work as a mom. And then as the kids got a little older, what I would do is just break out the crock pot, make dinner, and set up a still life on the back porch and paint big things on the back porch. And for me, every painting is just an opportunity to learn something more about how light is behaving. Like, what is yellow? I mean, if you're really like curious about how color is working, and you know, how color behaves, you know, set up a still life that is yellow on yellow. Set it up in sunlight, bring it inside, see what happens to the colors. It's endlessly just inspiring to me.
I want to pass on a question that's asked by Judith. With gouache, do you mix your colors on the palette as opposed to when you use acrylics?
Yeah, so I've gotten into this. Really, this is my acrylic hack, which is it's so unorthodox, but I just discovered this recently. With acrylics, what I started doing is, there's a company I love in Culver City that's called Nova Color, and they make beautiful chromatic paints that they really hold their luminosity to me. And so what I'll do is, I actually, rather than laying out the paints, sometimes that makes me anxious because I feel the paint is going to dry and then I've wasted paint. And so that presents a whole, you know, different ball of wax. So what I've started doing with the Nova colors is I don't even lay them out. I just leave them open, and then I dip into the colors. And then with the gouache, like today I've got a palette set up, and I'll just lay out the paints there. And, you know, sometimes I use something that's called outdoors. It's called a cup easel. Oops, it's too light. And it's super lightweight. It's also on that handout thing that I made. So here's the thing, this value, way too light, but it's going to dry down. And the more water you've got on there, the more likely it is to dry down. So I'm going to just put it in exaggerated and then knock it down. But, you know, another thing, Mark, about this process and working in gouache, and why I like to do it, is that every time I'm painting, which is every day, I'm either doing this or I'm working on the iPad. It's giving me the most important piece of information relative to an art practice, which is the secret sauce you were talking about. The secret sauce is understanding why, like why and what you love. Because when you understand why and what you love by engaging in daily practice, you are going to be engaged in your art in a way that will sustain you for a very long time, but it will also make your art uniquely yours. And it's a great thing to do.
Yep, that is so well said. It's what gets me up every morning, excited to get out to the studio and get to work.
Doesn't it? I mean, it's just like, you know, and the thing is, it's like, okay, I've got this value a little bit too light in the shadow, so I need to, but I'm going to just go I don't know how much time we have or don't have, but I'm
You've got
sort of,
about 12 minutes till we're going to do a short break and then we'll come back.
okay, that's great. Well, I told Mark that I cheated because I painted this already just in case it went south. And so
It's
I've
going
got
north.
a,
It's going north, Ann.
yeah, well, I don't know what it's doing or not doing. I'm still, really the thing is these values right now are pretty exaggerated, but you can see as it starts drying, it's drying down several values. So the truth is about working in gouache, you have to, it takes two passes. You've got to go back in and adjust.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about like the mystery of yellow is that I love painting yellow because it always surprises me. It's like, you start painting something and you think, oh, wait, yellow is, there's an intellectual response to color that is actually not the truth. Like yellow will surprise you when you are painting something outdoors. You'll say, wow, I had no idea that yellow could go into red in the shadows. And then how do you translate that? That's what's so fun.
That
So,
is cool.
so
So
okay.
we're
Now you can
starting to
see everything's
see
dried down.
we're starting to see the light hitting the flower, but also the shadow.
Yeah, so now what you'll see, okay, and hopefully through the magic of something in the next 12 minutes I can pull this around, but now that the canvas is sort of covered and you got a roadmap of what's your lights and darks, now you can go in and if you wanted to start working smaller things without breaking up the big shapes too much, because the second I go in with too much of a value shift, then you've broken up the beautiful harmony. So one thing I still carry from my teacher, thing that he used to say, he came from a graphic design background, and he used to say also that paintings that can be 6 value paintings that can be read from across the room, those are the successful paintings. And so I think about that a lot. Like, the goal for me is not I wouldn't even know how to render something, in a perfectly rendered way. The goal for me is like, okay, how am I communicating the most, in a way that excites me about what I was looking at and what is the light doing?
Yep.
Okay, so how about, does anybody have any other questions?
Boy, there's been a lot of questions about your surface. Do you tend to keep your darks a little more transparent than the lights?
That's what I love to do outside. I love doing that. But that's sort of on a slicker surface.
Yeah.
That is the absolute thrill of painting for me. There was one painting I did of my garden where I really nailed it. And I live for that. It's like, oh boy, can you render, can you just express what's going on and still have that beautiful economy of letting the darks be washed in and sing. That thrills me no end. Okay, let me just, good thing I painted this before. That's what we'll say here.
So Barbara wanted to see your palette, and maybe at
Yeah.
the end we can drop the camera down and see what that looks like.
Yeah, a friend on Instagram asked me if I could recommend a sort of limited palette. And I would say this is fairly limited, what I'm working with right now. which is just a pure red, an ochre, and so you'll see, I'll show. But and the interesting thing is, really in gouache, I spend a lot of time, and actually recently in oil painting too, just really working the midtones of something, and then the last, it's just like, the building a cake metaphor. You're relating one area to another and spending most of your time doing that, and then the last um, small stretch of time is the icing.
Yes. That makes it all come together in the end.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's not about rushing, even though right now I'm not necessarily demonstrating that. But it's not about rushing to the conclusion. It's about relating one thing, one area to another, and just keep building, looking, adjusting. And one thing about the gouache is it really, I love that you can just absolutely adjust things. And I don't know, I guess another piece of using it is it's given me more confidence in making changes when I go back to working in oil, in terms of mixing colors, that I can create the effect that I desired. In here, I'm going to just pop in some lights, even though I would normally not be doing that now. Let's see, because we have a couple minutes, Mark.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Let me just ask a question that Judith asked. With gouache, are there any specific rules about layering?
Yes, that's a great question. Let's see. So I tend to layer by, like in this instance, I think the thing is that in this instance of this surface, you're having to cover the canvas twice. I think that's the only kind of rule there is, in the sense that you have to get the canvas covered, and then for it to become more opaque, you're needing to put another layer on. So that's that. So, but I bet Judith is asking, is there like a thick over thin rule? And
Yeah,
I
probably.
suspect that's probably, yes, it's probably, I guess that is what I'm doing, is thick over thin. And so I'm just adding more white.
Yes. And that's really what oil painting is about, thick over thin
Thick over thin.
also.
And then I like the idea of just sort of pulling, pulling things out from what you're looking at. So working the midtones and then pulling the form out from that. And so so Judith can probably see here, each layer is getting more opaque. And
Yep.
on this surface, if I were painting out in the garden, a small sketch, I'd probably maybe do something more, use some opaque transparent layers. But the same thing would apply, which is that it really takes, from my experience, about 2 passes to get the canvas covered.
Yeah.
So I think what I'd probably do right now is just like kind of pop in you just keep adjusting, sort of like pop in something there. Oops.
Why don't we go to our commercial break here
Perfect.
and let you do your thing and pull it together. And maybe when you get back, could you talk about the brushes that you use?
Absolutely.
All right. So, for those of you who haven't heard yet, Streamline has a 5-day convention called the Plein Air Convention and Expo with over 80 world-renowned artists. I've been every year. I just love it. I'm going to be there this year. It's like going back to summer camp every year because you see so many of your friends. It's really a wonderful experience. There aren't many tickets left. So, boy, get in there if you really want to go. Um, it's in the Great Smoky Mountains this year and the Biltmore Estates, first time on the East Coast. So I'm anxious to get back there. If you want to get tickets, go to pleinairconvention.com for more information and to buy your tickets. Streamline also has another event that really was invented during the COVID period for us. That's just fabulous. It's the fourth annual Pastel Live, and there's a great lineup also for this event. So if you're already working pastel, or if you're looking to learn pastel, go to pastel/live/ASL to sign up for that. It's about a 3-day experience. You can go in and out, and you can actually buy access for a year or a lifetime, I believe. So don't miss that. Also, I'll just do a little commercial for myself while Anne's resetting. I've got a wonderful video that was put together by Streamline Publishing, and it's called Design Strategies for Powerful Paintings. And I break down, like Anne's doing that, all the little steps in how you put together a really great painting. And you can find that on painttube.tv/ASL. So with that, let's get back to Anne and see the finish up of this. And thank you all for being here. We're getting some great questions.
Oh, that's so nice. How many more minutes do we have, Mark? I mean, do we have a lot more?
We got about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's good. All right. Well, excellent. Sorry about that. Let me just turn this around. Hang on. And I'll just keep on painting on because, hang on. 1 second. And dun, dun, dun. There we go. Let me just scooch this back over. Okay, sorry about that.
Nothing like live TV, huh?
No, exactly. I mean, I was saying, there we go. How is that? Am I getting a fair amount of glare on there, Mark? Yes.
A little bit.
Sorry about that, everyone. There. That's puts us in the right realm. Okay. Yeah, I was saying to you that my movie days were good preparation for this moment here. Let's see.
Christy, can you put up the reference photo again?
There we go. Okay. So now what I would do is sort of work with a, start working the darks back in to form to the light shapes so that you're carving really, you're carving back in to some of these spaces. How's it? Can you see that okay, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I would do at this point in the painting. And without sort of, delineating it too much, because at the end of the day, I'm really just looking at, I'm concerned with, or, considering the light, what's going on, the design of this. Okay, dun, dun, dun. Let's see here.
So is it at this point, is the underpainting pretty dry?
Yeah, that's pretty dry. It definitely is pretty dry.
Okay. How about brushes? What brushes are you using?
So these are, I'm using those, let's see, I've got Winsor Newton Cotman brushes. And I used a 14, and then this one's a 10. And So I'm just going in and sort of strengthening some of those spaces. But what I love about this is you can just so easily make an adjustment to something. You can correct course so readily.
Yeah. Are those soft brushes? Are they rounds?
They're
Tell.
rounds, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a
Okay.
big round fan. Well, it working in gouache. I really love rounds.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's that. And I guess at every phase of the painting, it takes such you've got to just keep letting go of what you've got, like, not being too attached to what's already there. To nothing's precious.
Yep.
Nothing
Yep.
precious.
What I found is sometimes, even when I'm outdoors, I'll turn away from the subject and just focus on painting a good painting. So I don't let the subject talk to me and say, "You got to put this tree in."
Yeah. Yes, yes, that's right. And then probably at this point, let me just put, because I love pattern. I absolutely love patterns. So I'll often use like a dishcloth sometimes I'll use my own patterns. I design those also in Procreate. Um, because as I said, I just love the idea of leveraging tech to make more time for art and creativity. So um, I take my sketches that I make in gouache and I make um, fabric, I make curtains, I make all kinds of things. And so let's see, let's get a little more of
Talk
that.
about Procreate a little bit. Not everybody knows what Procreate is.
Oh, okay. So Procreate, I have been using my iPad since I'm a tech person. So years ago, when I ran an office, I became, after college, the de facto person that was the tech person for the entire office. And the thing that is wonderful about that is tech does not intimidate me. And it shouldn't intimidate you either, because if you're someone with an iPad, you can be using that as a means to make art every single day without exception. And the thing is Procreate is about $10, I think.
It's a
It's
software package, right?
it's just an app.
Oh,
And
it's an app. Okay.
oh my gosh, it's so intuitive to use. I teach people to use it so that it doesn't replace painting, but it helps you to dream. It's helped me sell paintings. You can help in the sense that it's helped me to stay creative, number one. But number two, it's also helped me to help other people visualize my art in their spaces. And it is a phenomenal tool that is great to leverage these days, I think.
And do you ever teach anybody that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, I have a class online. I've taught hundreds of people.
Is
And
it on your website? Do you have that class on the website?
I do. Yeah, it's on my website. And boy, it has, I love it so much. And there's so many, I literally, as I said, I've spent the last 13 years using Procreate. I made a book of my sketches that I put on Amazon. I build books on Amazon using Procreate. I made a book of on Amazon of my recent paintings that I created. A lot of it in Procreate, and then it's available on Amazon.
Great.
So
Okay.
I'm a big fan. And I think the truth is that the future is really here. It's not long before, we'll all be, showing art um, through goggles or, I don't know. It's really interesting to see all the things that are changing right now with tech, and even the ability for people to see your art on their walls through AR is something. It's just amazing. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, can everybody see this a little bit better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I see that's a pattern in your, is that a pattern in the tablecloth?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's not one of mine, but it's one, it's a dishcloth that I loved. Okay, and if I'm taking my own advice, I think I would sort of knock some of those down in terms of the size of them. Okay. All right. And now I would really let's just hit some of the lights there. I mean, that's pretty exaggerated, but it'll probably dry down a little bit. So we'll just put it in.
I heard a great quote on Facebook the other day that I thought was so true. It said, a great painting is just a series of adjustments.
I think that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And really, to me, it's also, the joy of the journey, just the energy of painting from life, outside, and maybe like just also that sense of kind of the jeopardy of like, can I do this? Will I be able to, sort of express something? That's so much fun. So let's see here. And then you can see, to Judith's question, you can see that this, like, I've added more white, and now that's really getting opaque. So when you pop those lights, let's see, there's that.
Do you ever come back the next morning and look at the painting and go, well, I need to pop those colors even more?
Yeah, I do. I mean, really, with my sketches in gouache, I think they're more like just, I would say, generally kind of quick impressions of things.
Yeah.
And, I think about them less, differently than I do other paintings that I would be like. If I paint a big one in oil or acrylic outside, I'm definitely, those take days, if not weeks, depending on what the light's doing in the garden. There are far fewer things more challenging than painting a giant painting in a garden, plein air. It's so much fun. So these are jumping right now, but I think they should dry down, and that becomes one of the challenges and sort of the fun part of working in gouache is, it's going to dry duller, and then you just kind of come back and look at it before your paint dries out. I think also the fact that the paint dries out, part of working plein air and part of working in gouache is there's this forced resolution in terms of the time, like the light changes, the paint dries, and it forces a sort of a natural ending to a painting in a way that doesn't happen in the studio. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Um, I'll say that there's a lot of questions in here, really good questions that I can't quite get all of them, but and maybe you might look afterwards at this
Yeah.
and see if you can answer some of these questions. Uh, I know Jim Woodart did that yesterday, and it really got a lot of the questions answered.
Oh, sure. Would I go onto YouTube after and do that?
Yeah, or Facebook. I think
Sure.
Christy might have an opinion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made a YouTube thing, a little video. I've got two things up there. One is a great um, uh, interview of our friend Dan McCaw about the art process.
Oh yeah.
And that took me a couple years to edit down and put up there. But then the other thing I put up recently is just a video of painting in gouache in the garden. And so a lot of materials are listed there also for anybody that wants that.
Perfect.
Well, that's going to dry down. How are we on time?
We are about 9 minutes left.
Oh, okay. All right. This is nice. Does anybody have any other questions?
Let's see. I think one person really asked, Loretta asked, uh, she said the advantage of gouache is, especially when you're traveling, it's
Yes.
water-based.
Yes.
I've had to sneak Gamsol into foreign countries because I knew I couldn't get it because I'm an oil painter. But water's everywhere, and so it's actually not messy. You can wash out of your clothes. You can.
Yes.
I
I
found when I
know.
was in Italy, I could sit in a little corner and not instead of a big easel sitting out, where everybody can comment and make these little gouache sketches, which were great.
I think that's such a good point. Yes, I love that. It's kind of it not only makes use of like the small amounts of time, sometimes it's just so easy to set it up and the other day I just had a spare set in my trunk. I've got like an earthquake kit and then I've got spare paints. And I just grabbed my paints and I was like, wow, the light's beautiful. And I just grabbed my paints and I could make a small sketch in a, really brief amount of time. And it was so great. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to I'm punching in some darks in places. Let's see here. But, the trick is not punching them in so that they break up the bigger value shapes. It's like grouping your darks together is a big thing.
There's a quick question about when you add another layer,
Yeah.
does it tend to activate the lower layer and make it muddy?
It doesn't really. I don't think it does. It tends to be influenced by the layer below, but I don't think it makes it muddy.
Good.
Yeah,
it probably
so
has to do with a light touch also, right?
I guess that's right. And something, I think the thing is this whole process has helped me better understand some of the ways that I'm using it. And I would say in gouache, I am more likely to kind of work up to the chroma of something. So in different mediums, I might begin with chroma and then work down from there, if that makes sense. But in gouache, I'm working up to the chroma because it's going to have a better chance of singing when there's some white in it like this.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense. But I mean, to the point of what we initially intended to discuss, I hope that this has articulated to people how simple shapes can carry something.
Yeah. It's pointed out in the comments that acrylic gouache does not reactivate. So
That's
that
right.
may
And
be one of the
that's,
reasons.
yeah, I think that's right. And that's also why you basically, I think, don't need to necessarily, there's all kinds of, sort of processes by which you have to seal, um, regular gouache. But this being acrylic gouache, it's more acrylic than gouache, I think. Maybe it's a.
So do you put a sealer or
I
uh,
do.
you do? And what do
I
you
do,
spray
but
it with? Or
I tend to brush on. Um, I brush on a varnish, a
okay.
semi matte varnish,
Huh, okay.
and it just brings some of the colors back. But really, I'm using honestly, I'm using gouache just more for the joy of creating and observing and making sketches. I don't know. It's just
So you got a couple minutes left here
all right.
before we're going to say goodbye.
Okay, let me flip around here. Well, there we go. Well, that's that. Let me just do this. Okay. And let me flip around my camera. Okay, Mark. Dun dun dun. More settings. 1 second. Camera and front camera. There we go.
Well, while she's doing that, I want to really encourage you to go to her website, Ann with an E Ward.com. There, and even just Google her name and see all the images that show up there. It's it's delightful, and it's the type of painting you want to hang in your kitchen to make
Oh,
you happy every day.
oh, that's so nice, Mark. Well, that's the thing. At the end of the day, I really think that the resonance of what brings the artist joy is so paramount to the process. It's really everything, and that's another reason to use gouache for me.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to sum up and do you want to show the finished painting so people
Yes.
can see it
Okay.
straight on?
There's finished painting and dun dun dun. Let's
Bring it
just
up closer to the camera.
yeah. Let me just untape this. Okay, so that's that. How's that looking?
That looks great.
Here is with a little less rushed. There's a bit more. That was my practice one, but basically, you're getting a good sense of
Yes.
how form can hold a painting together, and yeah, that's that. Wait, I'll show you this one thing right here, Mark, which you'll like. So this was one of my absolute favorite ones that I made outside. This is an apron that is
Look
from
at
one of
that.
my gouache paintings that sold. So
Wow.
that's what I do. I just, have these things around and whatever. But it's just creating and staying creative. And I hope that was all very helpful to people.
Oh, absolutely. I thought this was great. I was really looking forward to this day because I want to see how you paint. I've admired your paintings for so long, and
Oh,
it's
likewise.
wonderful.
So kind.
Yes, yes. Thanks so much. So tomorrow we've got Ray Roberts is going to follow up, uh, who is Peggy Kroll Roberts' husband. And Ray has been my mentor for a long time. He's got a workshop coming up that I think I'm organizing. I've got one more spot, but make sure that you tune in tomorrow to see Ray's work. He's a fabulous teacher also. And then the next day is Jeff Allen in watercolor. And then one of my very favorites also, Colin Page is on Friday. So please join us this week. And I really appreciate all the great comments and great participation here. I want to ask Anne to also post the final painting on Facebook so that everybody can take a look at that, or Instagram, whichever is your favorite, and hopefully everybody can see that. And I guess that is it for the day. I'm going to get painting here. I can't wait to use some of the ideas that Anne was talking about. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you, Anne, for a great demonstration. We'll see you tomorrow.